Just want to wish all of you out there a very Merry Christmas. Hard to believe we're only 2 days away. Robert Harding and his Bills paraphernalia there, celebrating their first division title since 1995. Wow. When he was just a little child.
Well, some of us can't get lucky when Tom Brady blows out his knee and our team wins the division title.
Yeah, okay. We won that. I proudly wear my 2008 AFC East division winning championship sweatshirt and hat. And Justin Ritzel, who is a person, of course, who's no stranger to division titles because his Green Bay Packers have won so many over the last 20 plus years. To him, it's old hat. You don't see him wearing any Packers gear. He knows how to celebrate his team winning another division title because he's so used to it. Right, Justin?
Well, here's the thing. We don't celebrate division titles. We don't hang banners for division titles like that team in Minnesota. I guess when you only win one every 10 years, that's something to celebrate. No, Green Bay is called Title Town for a reason, which means anytime you don't win a title, it's disappointing. That's all I have to say.
So we're gonna do our NFL picks, but before we get started, I have to mention Robert and we always exchange gifts for Christmas, and even with the pandemic and everything, we decided to continue to do it. So I got Robert a pretty cool looking Die Hard themed T-shirt, and Robert got me this, and I'm going to stand up so everybody can see it. It is a T-shirt he had custom made about my, I don't want to say fame because it's not really famous, but my game show appearance on MTV back 30 years ago on Remote Control. And I have to admit, I was quite surprised by this. I had a pretty good laugh when Robert gave it to me last night. I was laughing hysterically. It's very funny. It's very cool, and I'm quite grateful to Robert for this wonderful gift. So, all right, let's get to the picks. Our first game. I just said thank you. So our first game is the team that Justin just alluded to, the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing at New Orleans. The Vikings are coming off a real stinker. They had a chance to stay in the playoff hunt, but after laying an egg to the Bears, and of course, Justin's second favorite quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, did it to them. The Vikings are playing at New Orleans. New Orleans coming off a disappointing loss to Kansas City at home last week. New Orleans, though, they're in the playoffs. They still have a chance to get the number one seed. That still is possible if the Green Bay falters in their last couple games. So big game for New Orleans. They're 7-point favorite at home, and I like them to win and cover. I think Drew Brees was a little rusty last week. I know he doesn't have the arm strength of the old Drew Brees, but I think this New Orleans is clearly the best team in the NFC South. Obviously, one of the best teams in the NFC, and I think they will win and cover against Minnesota. Go ahead, Justin.
You're going to me first on the first.
Yeah, I'm looking at you. I see you right now. So I don't see Robert. I usually call out who I see on my screen, so I see you. So go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm honored. I'm honored I got to talk about the Vikings, that pathetic franchise. Yeah, what a roller coaster season for those jerks in purple. Losers of 5 of their first 6 games. Then they won 5 of their next 6, and now they're on a 2-game skid. Pretty much ruined all hopes of sneaking into the playoffs by losing to the Bucs and Bears the last 2 weeks. But if there's a team that the Vikings kind of own a little bit, it's the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Couple playoff games in the last few years that the Vikings won. I think if this line was a little smaller, I'd take the Saints pretty confidently, but 7 points is a lot for a team that's, with Drew Brees, who just, more on this later, but he looked terrible on Sunday. So I'll take the Vikings in here to at least cover the 7 points. I still think the Saints will win, but I wouldn't be stunned if they lost.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Justin correctly points out that the Vikings have had the Saints number over the years, but Yeah, Breeze, I think he started to play a little bit better late in that game when when the Saints were really up against it with the Chiefs. If Breeze is healthy, you wonder how that game would have turned out. If Taysom Hill started, you wonder how that game would have turned out with entirely different quarterback. But as far as this game goes, I am taking the Vikings to cover. I think it'll be a close game. The Vikings, they've been obviously a streaky team this year, but I think they have enough to keep it fairly close, and give the Saints a little bit of a scare. Plus, with Breeze, it seems to be acknowledged that he's not 100% healthy, which makes you wonder why they brought him back right now. They've got a playoff run coming up, so I don't know why they made the decision that they did, but I worry about him. Obviously, there's a situation with some of the other players on the team, namely Michael Thomas, who's been banged up this year. The defense has played okay, but the offense has been up and down throughout the season. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Vikings to cover in this one. They might not win, but they'll certainly cover.
All right. Our next game, the Indianapolis Colts at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are 1.5-point favorites. Pittsburgh coming off arguably probably one of the worst losses in franchise history, at least the last 30, 40 years. A clunker on Monday night to the Bengals. I mean, that's just crazy when you think about it. And of course, as we know, Pittsburgh has now lost 3 games in a row, and they lost the Washington football team, Robert's Buffalo Bills, and of course now the Bengals. So the Steelers are reeling. I think they get it together this game. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to just blow the doors off the Colts, but it's 1.5. I think they can cover 1.5. I think the key is Pittsburgh's defense. I think they're going to get after Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has no mobility. He's due for a stinker of a game. I've been saying this for a while. Phillip Rivers always has a real stinker of a game where he throws 3 or 4 interceptions. I think this is it. I like the Steelers to win and cover 1.5. Robert?
Well, Chris, if you were a Steelers fantasy owner, as I am, you would know that this is a defense that's pretty banged up at the moment, and that affects the effectiveness of players like T.J. Watt, who is really lacking a pass rushing partner in Bud Dupree, who's out for the season. They're banged up in the linebacker ranks, and they still have a pretty good secondary. Obviously, they do have T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, but that defense is obviously missing some key pieces. So I like the Colts in this one. I just do not like where the Steelers are trending. I know that Juju Smith-Schuster came out today and said he's not going to be TikToking anymore. Well, there's a new TikTok in Pittsburgh. It's counting down to see when their season ends and lose hold of the AFC North, because it easily could be the Browns division by the end of the season here.
Yeah.
So, I just like the way the Colts are playing. They're a pretty solid team. Phillip Rivers, I think, has been rejuvenated. He's been connecting with T.Y. Hilton a lot more lately. They have a solid group of running backs on that team. And then the defense, they've played pretty well for most of the season. They've had some letdowns here or there, but I just think the Colts are a better team, and I think they'll beat the Steelers.
All right, Justin.
I don't understand this line. Like, I don't know how you can watch football over the last month and a half and think that the Steelers deserve to be favored over a team like the Colts, who are winners of, I think, 5 of their last 6. They have wins over the Titans and the Packers in that stretch. Like, the Colts are peaking at the right time. Phillip Rivers is peaking at the right time. I think that was a signing that a lot of people, including probably myself, scratched their head at a little bit when the Colts brought in Phillip Rivers. Like, he just had a bad year last year, turned the ball over a lot, and he's had a nice bit of a renaissance season here. He's settled in of late. Vice versa, his Steelers counterpart, Ben Roethlisberger, not a game with a passer rating over 90 in 5 weeks. The Steelers haven't scored over 20 points in 4 weeks. It's going to be pretty funny when we get to January and the Steelers get knocked out and are a one and done. and we think back to like, oh, were the Steelers the best team in football at one point? They were the last team that was undefeated. It's just amazing how quickly things can change. But if that Steelers team isn't going to put up 20 points a game, I don't care how good their defense can be, healthy or not. You're not winning too many games against playoff teams like that. So I will gladly take the Colts in this game. I think they're just straight up a better team.
All right, our next game, the battle for the NFC West, the LA Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle 1.5-point favorite. Rams coming off a stunner. They lost to the Jets. They just absolutely played like garbage to give the Jets their first win. Seattle, they hit a little bump on the road there, but they seem to be, coming along a little bit here as they head in towards the last part of the season. They beat the Washington football team, where I think some people, and I think I picked Washington to cover against Seattle, and they didn't. So I think Seattle, this is 1.5. I think they'll win easily. I think the defense gets after Jared Goff. Russell Wilson looks a lot better, and I like Seattle to win and cover the 1.5. Go ahead, Justin.
Russell Wilson, the guy who can't even top 200 yards in passing. I mean, listen, I think these teams are pretty even, all things considered. The Rams are obviously coming off a stinker. The Seahawks have not looked good in a month, kind of like the Steelers haven't. A team that really got out of the gates hot and has really cooled off of late, including their quarterback. So I want to talk about these two teams more in a few minutes when we get to our takeaways, but I'll take the Rams in the 1.5.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, this is a tough one just because it's tough what to make of the Rams. Seattle's had their ups and downs after a hot start, but for me, especially after the Rams lost to the Jets, it's tough to really figure out how good this team truly is. It was just a few weeks ago that they lost to the Niners too, and we see the Niners are obviously struggling with the injuries that they've had to deal with, and that's really hurt their chances this year. But as far as the Rams go, I don't trust Jared Goff enough to say that he can go out there and win this game. I'm going to lean on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks in this one. I think it'll be close, but I think the Seahawks will pull it out in the end.
All right. Our last game is the Tennessee Titans at the Green Bay Packers. Justin's Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, 3.5-point favorite. This is an interesting game because I'll tell you, the Titans, I think pound for pound, may be one of the best teams in pro football. If you look at quarterback, running back, defense, they're pretty good. And 3.5, I mean, not a large line, not a large number, but still, I like Tennessee to cover that 3.5. Maybe they lose by a field goal. Maybe they actually win. But I think Tennessee can hang with the Packers. And I know probably Justin's jaw is dropping to the floor, and I can't see it right now. I can only look at Robert. But I think Tennessee can go into Green Bay and give them a scare and at least cover the 3.5. Look, Green Bay, they're the best team in the North, no doubt about it, although they play in a bad division, as we all know, because the rest of the division is a bunch of dogs. Okay. But I'm telling you, Tennessee, I like them. I have a feeling about them. I think they cover the 3.5. Go ahead, Robert.
Oh man, what a take that is. As good as Tennessee has been, I am concerned about how Green Bay. Green Bay's been a lot better defensively than I think a lot of people realize. I think they've been somewhat better against the run, but Derrick Henry does concern me in this game. But look, the Packers have Aaron Rodgers, all right, and the Titans defense isn't that good. The Titans have been, they've been strong enough on offense that it makes up for some of the lapses on defense. But in a game like this, I think those lapses will be exposed again. And I'm taking the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers will have a good day. They'll get Devontae Adams back going again after he was contained last week. And then you got Aaron Jones, Bob Tonyan, who was screwed out of the Pro Bowl, should be a Pro Bowl tight end. This is a pretty good team. and I'm going to take the Packers over the Titans in this one.
All right, Justin.
Well, I'm with you, Chris. I think this game really could go either way, despite my bias toward the Packers. I think it's interesting because what each team does well, like there's just so many bad matchups, like one way or the other in this game. Like, I don't know. The Packers are a terrible tackling team, and you're telling them they got to go shut down Derrick Henry, who's the most physical running back in football, and like A.J. Brown, who's a big play threat every time he catches the ball. On the flip side, like the Titans do have a pretty bad defense. They're bad in the red zone. They're bad on third down. Well, who's the best offense on third down in the red zone? The Packers. So there's just a lot of checks and balances in this game that I think are really interesting. I'm going to pick the Packers just for the simple fact that they tend to come out scorching hot in the first quarter or the first half. And I think that'll take the Titans out of their game plan. Obviously, they want to run the ball with Derrick Henry. They want to kill the clock. They want to shorten the game a little bit. So if the Packers can make Ryan Tannehill beat them by forcing him to pass the ball and not be able to do play action and stuff, I like their chances. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be very high scoring, but I do like the Packers to really have a nice win here at the end of the regular season and win by 4 to 7 points.
All right, now we'll do our week 15 takeaways and what to look for week 16. Robert, you get to go first this week.
Ooh, wow. What an honor. I mean, usually it's you bloviating for 5 minutes.
I'm switching it up, okay?
I understand you're trying to be a man of fairness. My takeaways from last week, I got to talk about my Bills here, winning the division title. I know that for some fan bases, this is a perennial occurrence, and so it means a lot less. But, for the Bills, it shows that this team is heading in the right direction, that they are becoming a contender in the AFC again. And winning a division is, part of their plan. It's part of the evolution of this franchise that has been rebuilding for many years. So, it's great to see this moment where they do get the division title, and then on top of that, with Pittsburgh's blunder on Monday, move into that second seed, which obviously this year, doesn't have the same weight as it has in past years because it's you don't get a first round bye, but if you get past the wild card round, you're going to get another home game. So, being in that 2 seed, you do get 2 home games and potentially 3 if the Chiefs fall. So, just a great weekend for the Bills. Looking ahead to this week, there's some big games this week, and looking at the schedule, one game we didn't talk about, Chris, your Dolphins playing the Raiders, which, the Raiders are hanging on to their playoff hopes. The Dolphins are obviously in a better position. The Dolphins, it's fair to say they need to win out. They need to hope that the Bills will let them in the playoffs come week 17. But, that's a game that that's going to be a big game for both teams. Obviously the Raiders want to win to stay alive. The Dolphins need to win to improve their chances for getting in. Some of the other games that stand out, just in terms of, playoffs or seeding, obviously Cleveland against the Jets. Cleveland's got to take care of business. We saw what happened with the Rams last week against the Jets. Who knows? Maybe the Jets are eager to play spoiler after giving up the number 1 pick. I don't know, but the Browns they can't overlook the Jets. Obviously, if things pan out a certain way, the Browns could be playing for the division title on next week. So you don't want to overlook your opponent now. And then the situation in the NFC East, because none of those teams are really out of it right now, even as bad as they are. Philadelphia plays Dallas this week. That's going to be a huge game. That'll decide, who's sticking around, when week 17 rolls around. And then Washington playing Carolina, big game for Washington, obviously. And then the Giants and Ravens, both teams in that case are vying for playoff position. So a lot of great matchups this week. So looking forward to watching some football. We got Christmas Day with the Saints and Vikings, and we're gonna have 4 straight days of NFL games, which is quite a treat this time of year.
All right, Justin, your takeaways and what are you looking for Week 16?
Well, I'm never shy about dunking on the New York Jets. They've been a pretty pathetic franchise for almost their entire existence, save for they have a few years here and there where they're relevant, like a couple years with Rex Ryan, back-to-back AFC championships. They almost made the playoffs with Robert's boy, Ryan Fitzpatrick, a few years ago. So they're not just like a constant loser like the Browns have been, but they are kind of a laughable franchise. But I just want to say, because there's been a lot of jokes made after they shocked the Rams about how they blew their chance at a transcendent quarterback. Because now the Jaguars own the rights to the number 1 pick. Who knows what's going to happen over the last 2 weeks? I don't really see how things are going to shake out where if both teams, there's a lot of tiebreakers that go into this, but basically the Jets royally screwed themselves out of getting that number 1 pick. But I think people are just assuming that Trevor Lawrence is going to be some franchise-altering quarterback. And one, I've seen Trevor Lawrence, not that I'm some college football savant, but I've seen Trevor Lawrence in person. I covered the game when they came to Syracuse, when Clemson came to Syracuse, and they kicked Syracuse's butt, but it wasn't because of Trevor Lawrence. He was fine. He's an athletic quarterback. I don't know if he has like the greatest arm, and I think that shows up. You look at guys like Joe Burrow, who lit up college football last year, and you throw him in the NFL where the game's just a tick faster, and he kind of looks like he doesn't have the arm strength. Chris's boy Tua, does he have that elite NFL arm? I don't know. I think that we just do a lot of assuming that these college quarterbacks are going to come in and light it up and be franchise guys, and that's just not how it works out most of the time. I looked up the quarterback classes of the last 10 years and looked up who was taken first in the quarterback class versus who actually became the best quarterback. And the odds of the first quarterback being taken actually becoming the best quarterback from that class is actually kind of low. Like you can make a case, like Kyler Murray, 2019 first overall pick. Okay, so far it's early, but he's kind of been head and shoulders the best quarterback of that class. But then you look at 2018. Well, Baker Mayfield was number 1. Josh Allen's been better than him. Lamar Jackson's been better than him. 2017, Trubisky was taken first. Mahomes is better. Deshaun Watson is better. So I don't want to throw dirt on the Jets just because they probably won't get Trevor Lawrence. Quarterback is such a enigma when you're looking at college prospects. It's literally a coin flip. There's no guarantee that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the next big thing. He could have a solid career, but never ultimately do anything, kind of like Andrew Luck, who was kind of the last big quarterback prospect that was a sure thing. So we'll see what happens. Don't say that the Jets are doomed because they don't get Trevor Lawrence. They'll have a chance to draft a great quarterback if they want, or they can stick with Sam Darnold, who I think with a better supporting cast, he still has a decent shot at being a good NFL starter. As far as what I'm looking forward to, I'll make this quick because I just went on a nice long rant. I'm wondering what team in the NFC is going to step up and be the biggest challenge to the Packers. Not that the Packers are perfect, but I think you have major flaws or major weird performances from some of these other teams that are going to challenge them. The Rams, they just lost to the Jets. They had an ugly loss to the Dolphins about a month ago. They are due for a stinker once every month, and that's not going to get it done in the playoffs. And Drew Brees, I don't know how you can feel good about the Saints' chances with Noodle Arm himself throwing duck passes like he was on Sunday. I'm curious to see who kind of steps up and becomes that number 2 team in the NFC.
Well, guys, this is interesting because my takeaway was going to be about the Jets, but Justin, I think, did a pretty good job explaining it. And my look ahead to week 16 was going to be about the NFC East, which Robert went through pretty good. So I got nothing. So we'll move on to
Typical.
our last topic. Well, sorry. I mean, now I know how it feels for you guys,
Yeah.
I guess, when
Yeah,
I
you
take
do.
thunder.
Yep.
Yeah, I do. So you're right. So our last topic is about being today is December 23rd. If you're a Seinfeld fan, you of course remember the classic episode about Festivus. And Robert said, "Hey, it's time to air our grievances. What is one grievance you'd like to air about pro sports?" I'm going to go first on this one. So my grievance is commissioners that are very tone deaf or just don't get it. And I'm talking, there's two guys I really am pointing my finger at, and that's Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball and Roger Goodell of the NFL. Rob Manfred for, again, trashing his sports trophy, calling it a piece of metal, almost torpedoing a chance of a season this past year. Um, nuking the minor leagues. I mean, obviously, our Auburn Double Days are history because of Manfred's, idea of changing player development and they're limiting the minors to 140 teams. So, and then some of the gimmicks, with extra innings and some other little things with the rules and stuff. And then for Goodell, there was talk that the NFL was going to basically formally approve a 17th regular season game this week for next year. It didn't come to pass yet, but we know it's coming. We've always said that the NFL does not need a 17th regular season game. It's fine the way that it is with 16. And again, greed. I mean, the whole idea that we, Thursday night football and we almost could have football every day of the week now. I mean, because of COVID, we've had games on Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's been crazy. And the NFL consider diluting its product even more by spacing games out. So both these commissioners, I think, I mean, they care more about the dollar signs than the competitive aspect of the product or the what's the word I'm looking for, the competitive balance or just the overall quality of the product, because they're trying to cash in and make as much money as they can, either off television. And I understand there's COVID, a pandemic, that revenues are down, that they're trying to make money. I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's not, permanently ruin these beautiful sports that we love so much. So those are my grievances. Greedy, tone deaf pro sports commissioners. Go ahead, Justin. Your grievances.
Can we do away with coaches' challenges, please? I'm so tired of refs in every sport because they exist in every sport now, every professional sport. Baseball, hockey, basketball, NFL, they've been around for forever. Don't we, well, not we, but don't the leagues pay guys who wear special black and white uniforms with stripes? Don't they pay them to officiate games? That's what I always thought. And yet, every time they blow a call, whether it's the 10 guys out in the field during an NFL game or the 4 guys during an NHL game or the countless umpires out there on a baseball field, there's so many of them, yet why are we asking coaches to officiate the game? I understand wanting to get calls right. Don't put it on the coaches. Build up your officials, make sure they are capable, that they know the rules, that they're trained properly to handle the speed of professional sports. I'm so tired of the coaches' challenges. Build up your officials, and you won't need to do coaches' challenges. That's my grievance.
Robert.
Chris, mine is kind of along the lines of yours. Only I'm going to be talking about the head of a sport that we usually don't talk about on this podcast, and that's UFC's Dana White. He made some headlines this week by posting a video that blasts members of the media that cover MMA and UFC, and some other individuals too, including medical experts. Basically, the video's purpose was to dunk on those who said that it wasn't safe to hold competitions, hold these fight cards. And, Dana White is proud to say that UFC was the first back, that, they started having fights, I believe in early May. And, they've had cards ever since. And, it was so successful, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a lot of things about that get ignored. First, and I forget which reporter pointed this out, but they mentioned that, without media, without people bringing attention to the sport, the UFC was losing money until it became this mainstream sport that it is now. And that's because of entities like, the MMAfighting.coms of the world, Ariel Helwani's coverage, SU alum, networks like Fox and ESPN that brought attention to the sport and really made the UFC what it is today. But it also ignores, the reality of the situation with many of the fighters and those involved with the sport. Dana White acts like, COVID didn't really affect his sport this year, and that they held it without a hitch, and, everything was successful. And as long as we made money, what's the big deal? Well, it affected a lot of different fighters. There were fighters who tested positive. There were fighters who had family members die of COVID. There was one fighter in particular, Rose Namajunas, who lost 2 family members to COVID early in this. And then, there's other people involved, coaches, cornermen, who also had, who either tested positive or were affected by the virus in some way. So, this attempt at a dunk by Dana White, I think it went off the back iron because, he trashed some good people along the way. John McCarthy, a longtime ref, a guy who's been knowledgeable about MMA for a long time, was included in this video, among others. It's just, another example of how terrible Dana White can be. We certainly know what his politics are, and I think that plays into it too. But, if this were any other league, this guy wouldn't be in charge of this. And as bad as Manfred and Goodell are, Chris, I think it's fair to say that at least they're reasonable. Dana White isn't reasonable. And, I think that this was a new low for him to trash a good number of people, medical experts included, but also the people, reporters. I've covered a few MMA events myself, but these people cover MMA events all year round. To trash them, I thought, was a bit disingenuous, especially when you consider that they're the reason he's risen to prominence in the first place.
All right. We're going to wrap it up then. Guys, thanks again. I wish you guys a Merry Christmas. And wish everybody else, obviously, again, a Merry Christmas. Everyone have a very safe holiday. And we'll see you next week.